I'm officially kicking off fall DIYs in today's video, so stay tuned. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Liz. For today's video, I have my all-time favorite fall DIYs. This video is going to have a ton of fall inspiration so that you can get your fall crafting on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our first DIY.
So this DIY has got to be probably one of my all-time favorites for fall that I've ever done, and a lot of it is because of this gorgeous scrap paper that I got in a pack from Michaels. I don't know what it is about Michaels scrapbook paper packs lately. I am just absolutely loving them, especially this one with the little pumpkins on it. I just thought it was so cute. So I knew I wanted to do some DIYs with them. I found this ginormous wood pumpkin at Michaels. It was $9.99, but I believe that their fall stuff was around 30 to 40% off, and it was over 17 by 17 inches. So it was a pretty huge pumpkin and really thick too. So the quality was really nice. I grabbed this pumpkin from the Dollar Tree and then this craft pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to start out with this one. I'm going to take the bow off. I'm going to take the metal leaf off. I'm going to fill in that hole at the top with some wood filler. I'll let that dry. And then I am going to trace the pumpkin out on this really pretty striped paper. It kind of looks like a gray and white, but it's actually this really pretty blue. I just thought it was really cute. So I'm just going to go through, trace around the pumpkin. I'll cut it out from the cardstock. And then for this pumpkin, I'm just going to use a glue stick, a good old just, purple glue stick on the front of it. I'm going to stick down the cutout of my pumpkin and just smooth that all down. And then while that's kind of drying and adhering, I'm going to move on to my second pumpkin, which is this kind of shiplap looking pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take that scrapbook paper with the little pumpkins on it, and I'm just going to trace around here again. I will cut that out with some scissors, just going all the way around. And this time I'm going to use some Mod Podge because of all the slats on there. I feel like there was going to be more of a chance for pieces to peel up with just using the glue stick. And I typically don't enjoy using Mod Podge for scrapbook paper just because I feel like for me, I'm not very good at it and it always tends to wrinkle up on me. So I just tried my best with this one. I put my scrapbook paper down, and for the slats in the middle, I'm just going to take an X-Acto knife and I just go around everything. I'm going to go around the sides. I'm going to cut through those slits throughout the pumpkin, and I kind of have to flip it back over and try to cut through as best as I can because I really wanted those slits to show through on the pumpkin. I liked the detail of it, so I tried my best to cut those out without totally ruining my scrapbook paper. And then once that's all on there, I'm going to take some antique wax. I'm going to use that on the stem, and then I'm also going to go around the pumpkin, all the sides and throughout the slits throughout the pumpkin on both sides. I just wanted to antique it a little bit, make it look a little bit more distressed. So I just take a little flat brush and go around all the sides with that antique wax. And then I'm going to go back to my first pumpkin and I will paint the stem with that Waverly antique wax as well. I just gave it about one good coat of that wax, and then again going over all the edges to give it a little bit more of a distressed look. And then for my largest pumpkin, I am going to take 2 pieces of scrapbook paper for this one because the pumpkin was so large. It's obviously not gonna, one paper's not gonna do it justice. I'm gonna need more. So I'm gonna take this really pretty bluish scrapbook paper and I'm going to use my glue stick on this one as well. And I'll just stick that on there, trying to cover up as much as I can. I will use my X-Acto knife to cut the scrapbook paper that's hanging off the edge. I'll take another piece of scrapbook paper and put that on there using my glue stick. I just lined it up best as I could with both of the edges of the scrapbook paper. And then I'll cut off the remaining on that and I'll use that for the bottom. Even though you're not going to see too much of the bottom anyway because the other pumpkins will be covering it up, I still wanted it to look finished and complete. And then again for the stem, I am just going to be using my Waverly Wax and Antique, and I just went along the stem, and then I kind of went along where the stem meets the paper just a little bit, kind of just to blend the two together. And then same thing like the other two pumpkins, I'm going to take a small brush with my antique wax and I'm going to distress the edges. Now for this first pumpkin with the pumpkin scrapbook paper, I'm going to take some white twine and I'm going to wrap it around the bottom portion of that stem probably about 10 times. I'll hot glue it to the back of the stem, and then I'm going to make a twine bow just by wrapping some twine in between my index finger and my thumb, probably about 4 times, and then I'll take another piece of twine, wrap that around the middle, and then tie a knot. All I'm going to do is hot glue it to the bottom of my stem and just have a cute little twine bow for it. For my medium-sized pumpkin, I'm going to take some of this lace ribbon that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I hot glued a little piece of it around the bottom portion of the stem. I'm going to take that same ribbon and tie a simple shoelace bow with it, and then I will just hot glue it down to the bottom of the stem. And then for our last pumpkin, I'm going to do the exact same thing that I just did to the other pumpkin, but with this really cute farmhouse style ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to just wrap a piece around the bottom of the stem, tie a bow, and then hot glue that on there. You could always add in some florals or greenery of some sort. I thought that this looked really pretty, just simple with the bows, but I also think that it would look really gorgeous with some extra florals and extra colors to pop in there. Now once all of my bows are on my pumpkins, I'm going to take my medium-sized pumpkin and I'm going to hot glue this down to the bottom side of my largest pumpkin. I just kind of stand it up to make sure that they're all level and even at the bottom. I'm going to cut the tails of my ribbons just to kind of, keep them from layering on top of the other pumpkins. And then I'll take my smallest pumpkin, hot glue that to the medium-sized pumpkin on the side. And that's all you got to do for this DIY. I think this is so pretty. I currently have it sitting on a shelf next to my front door, and I just think this is beautiful.
Popping in here really quickly to let you know that I make and sell wooden craft kits. I have a monthly subscription box as well where you get a wooden craft kit like this one right here, completely unfinished, ready for you to paint and turn into your own masterpiece. I will leave a link in my description box down below for you guys to check it out.
If you have a whole box full of mason jar lids, this will be the perfect DIY for you. I know that I end up with a ton of just leftover mason jar lids, although for some reason I didn't have enough this time, so I went on Amazon and purchased a whole bunch of mason jar lids. Obviously, if you have them, perfect. Don't go out and buy them if you don't have to. I am just going to string on a bunch of mason jar lids. I made sure that they were all going in the exact same direction. And I'm just going to add some twine throughout the middle, and I'm going to tie them really close together in a tight knot, and I will just double knot it. After I have them all tied together, I'm just going to go through and mess with the arrangement of them, kind of scooch them around a little bit until I like where they are all laying. And they weren't totally secure like that. So I added one of the sticks that you can get from the Dollar Tree in a big pack, and I added some hot glue to it. I stuck it right down in the middle, and that seemed to really make all the lids really tight together. Now I am going to be spray painting this. You could obviously spray paint all your lids beforehand, but I just felt like I didn't want the paint to scrape off while I was trying to arrange the lids, so I did it this way. I also added a whole bunch of hot glue around the stem and onto all the lids. It looks really ugly that way, especially once it's all spray painted, but it's all going to be covered up anyways, so I just secured it with as much hot glue as I could. And then I'm going to take this outside. I'm going to take this Krylon Matte Pale Sage spray paint that I just think is super pretty for fall. I taped up my stem just using some blue painter's tape, and I gave this probably about 1 to 2 good coats. Once it's all dry, I'm going to remove that painter's tape. Now you can see in the middle all that hot glue that I put there, but again, it's all going to be covered up, so it's not a huge deal. So I'm going to take that painter's tape off, and then I'm just going to start going through with some of this white twine. I wrap it around the bottom, trying to just cover up where the hot glue meets the stem of the pumpkin, and I'm just going to go around and around and then hot glue that in place. And then I'm going to take some florals that I have. I got a lot of this from Michael's and Hobby Lobby. I'm going to take these cornstalk pieces that I think are really pretty, and I'm going to cut some of those off. I'm also going to cut some leaves off of a pick from Hobby Lobby. And then I also had these really pretty orange berries from a pick from Michael's that I just thought looked really pretty against the blue. So I just started with the little cornstalk pieces. I'm just hot gluing those around the center of the pumpkin again to cover up all that glue. And I just went through, hot glued them down, and then I just trimmed the pieces as I saw fit. And then I'm going to hot glue down those 2 berry pieces. I'll go through and add the leaves just kind of in a random way. There really is no rhyme or reason to how I do this. I just kind of wing it. It's really all there is to it. And then I'm going to take this buffalo check bow that I got off of another pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to hot glue that down to the middle. And that's it. Look how cute this mason jar lid pumpkin turned out. Over to the Harvest Fall Decor. I'm so excited for all this stuff. They just had so many beautiful pieces, and when I saw this Welcome Friends piece with the beaded garland, I was really excited. I just thought this was gorgeous, and I knew I could recreate it for a fraction of the cost. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of these 12 by 12 canvases that I got in a pack, I believe from Joann's or Hobby Lobby, possibly even Michael's, but I just grabbed this canvas frame, and I'm going to remove the canvas off of the frame itself because I want that bare wood frame. So I'm just going to take a knife and go around and cut it off. You could take the staples out if you wanted to. I personally didn't feel the need to because I'm going to cover it up anyways, and it takes a ton of time to go through and take all the staples out. So I just go through and remove all the canvas from the staples. And then I'm going to set that canvas to the side because we are going to need it. So I am going to take my Waverly chalk paint in Elephant, and I'm going to paint the entire frame in this color, and I only did 1 coat. So when creating the decal for this piece, it's really easy. I'm just going to go into my design space. Now, I have already pre-made all of these designs, so I will have a link down in my description box. If you have a Cricut and you want to make them, you can have the link to all of these designs, so it's super easy. But if you want to see how I put them together, all I'm going to do is type out welcome, I'm going to type out friends, and then I'm going to go through and change the font. The font for the welcome is in Otherwise CLN. It's one that I had purchased, I believe, off Design Bundles. And then for friends, it is going to be in the font Elmira. It's this really pretty cursive. And I'm going to show you how you can get the little swirls on the end of the F and the S, or the little, the little end there, because you can see here, it doesn't come up with that. So if you want to get the little beginning and ending swirl type piece on the word friends, this is how you would do it. So again, this is a font that I purchased and downloaded to my computer. So I will go over to my computer search bar and type in character map. And then I will go into the font that I'm using. So I will just go find that font down on the left-hand side. When I have found that font, I'll click on it and then I'll scroll down until I see the alphabet with the little swirls on the front and the ends. So you can see they have them down there. I'll find the F and then I'll go down to copy. I'll go back to my CRICUT design space. I'll double click on my word. I'll highlight the F and then I'll just do Control V to paste it. And now you have the little swirly piece on the front of your F. And then you do the same thing for the S. You just find the S, copy it, and then paste it onto your S on the word friends. And that's all you have to do for that. Super, super easy. And then all you're going to do is just size it to the size of your project. Click on make it. Now for this one, because we're using the canvas, remember to mirror your design and don't forget to weld your design as well so that the word friends will cut out as one piece instead of each individual letter. And then you'll click continue and you'll just mark whichever type of material you're using. You'll want to click on iron on vinyl, shiny side down, and you'll cut out your decal. And I'm going to be using my CRICUT maker to cut out my decals for this video. This is one that I recently purchased with my own money. It was on a really good deal because the Maker 3 and the Explorer Air 3 are out now, so they've marked down the Maker. And I only had the Explorer 2 before, so I figured why not take a step up? It was on a really great deal, so I snagged it up. So once that's done, I'm just going to weed out my design. Now, when using HTV, it's a whole lot easier to weed than regular just adhesive vinyl because the vinyl itself isn't sticky, so you don't have to worry about it touching other pieces of your vinyl and it sticking to it and then completely ruining your whole project. I've had that done so many times and it's so frustrating. So I personally love weeding HTV because it is so easy. And then I am going to lay my frame on top of my canvas just to get kind of an idea of where I want everything to sit. So I'm going to put my words down, my vinyl down, try to get a good idea of where I want it to go. And once I have it where I want it, I'll just press down on it so that the backing will stick to my canvas. And I'm also using the back side of the canvas, just as a side note, for this project. Then I'm going to take my CRICUT heat press and a Teflon sheet just as, you know, an extra layer of protection, and I'm going to set that to 320 for 15 seconds. I was somehow lucky enough to find a wooden garland with leaves that were similar in shape to the original one on Kirkland's website. So I picked these up from Walmart. I believe it was $2.98 for this garland, and I thought this was perfect. So I just grabbed out 2 leaves that were similar in color, and then I'm going to grab 4 large beads and my Dixie Belle vintage duck egg paint, my absolute favorite color right now, and I thought it was perfect because it did match the original picture too. So I just took 4 of those. I only ended up needing 3. So I'm going to take some more natural wood beads that are smaller than the Dixie Belle ones. I will string 2 of those in between each of the larger bead, string on my leaves, more beads, just, you know, repeat that pattern until I have 3 sets of the beads. And then I'll just start assembling it all just using some hot glue. I'm just going to use that to attach my canvas down to my frame. And before I get to the very top, I'll stop a little ways so that I can insert my little garland piece, and I just made the twine go up through the top corner of each side, and then I just hot glued that down to the back. And the last thing that I did was just hot glue the bottom of the leaves down to a certain spot so that they weren't twisting or turning and they were, you know, facing straight, and I didn't have to worry about moving them back that way. So just hot glued those down, and that's it for this one. I thought this turned out so cute. It's not an exact dupe, but I do think it looks pretty similar, and I'm loving the way that this one turned out. I I took one of these pumpkin wreath forms. I actually picked this one up at Hobby Lobby. I know that you can get them at the Dollar Tree, at least last year. They had them out, but I'm assuming if they had them last year, they'll have them this year. So whether you get them from the Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby, pick one of these up and then pick out your favorite yarn. I just grabbed this chunkier yarn that I got, I think from Joann's, and all I'm going to do is tie a knot right at the base of the stem of the pumpkin, and now I'm going to wrap that yarn just around and around and around until I get all the way around the pumpkin. I'm not going to do the middle yet, I'm just going to do the outside. Now, one thing that did help me was to cut off a chunk of the yarn rather than trying to fit, you know, the whole skein of yarn through those wires. So just cut off a little bit and just wrap it around, and then when you get done with that, you can hot glue it and then start the next section. And now what I'm going to do for the middle section, it's kind of hard to explain, so hopefully you can understand what I'm doing. I'm just going to start off by hot gluing at the bottom of the pumpkin on one side. So where that first wire goes down through the middle, I'm just going to hot glue it around that. And then I'm going to wrap my yarn around the bottom, over the top, and back to the bottom. And then I'm going to bring my yarn around the bottom of the next wire, over the top, and back around the bottom. And I'm just going to do that over and over and over again. So I'll bring it around to the next wire, around the bottom, over the top, and then back around to the bottom. And I just tried to hold my yarn as tight as I could because I wanted everything to be nice and taut, make sure that everything was nice and tight. And then when I got to the end, when you're going to overlap to the side of the pumpkin, I did the same thing on that last wire throughout the middle. I went around underneath to the bottom and then wrapped around the top, brought my yarn back around, and then I would go over the side. So over the top of the side, bring that down, and then I would just wrap it around the next wire again and then start my pattern over. So wrap it underneath, over the top, back down, and then just do this all the way till you get to the very top of the pumpkin. So this is a bit of a, you know, this is a movie kind of craft, if you will. This did take me a good couple hours to do, but this is the perfect kind of craft to do when you have a good movie you want to watch, or if you got a good audiobook that you want to listen to, something to keep you preoccupied. I know I love doing my fast crafts, but honestly, it's kind of relaxing having a craft that you don't have to put too much thought into. You don't have to, you know, think a whole lot. You can kind of just mindlessly do it and watch a show. It's very relaxing, pretty therapeutic. So I just kept doing this over and over and over until I got to the very top. Now, when I got to the top, when I'm wrapping it around those end pieces, they didn't want to stay. So I had to take some hot glue to get those side pieces to stay when I was wrapping it around. And it just was looking a little bit sparse and I couldn't get it exactly the way that I wanted it to. So I decided to just finish it off. You can see how there are some gaps at the top. So what I ended up doing was just taking some hot glue and yarn and kind of just filling those pieces in by hot gluing them to the back. And then I'm also going to be adding a bow to this, so it really wasn't a big deal if it wasn't super full. So I just went through and kind of filled in with extra yarn where I thought that I needed to. And then I'm going to take some of this ribbon that I got from Michael's, I believe, and I just thought this was really cute. So I'm just going to take it in 2 loops and I'm just going to tie it in a knot. And since the front and back are the same, this works perfectly. So I don't have to worry about twisting my ribbon in any sort of way to get the front to show. So I just mess with the loops until I get it the size that I want and cut that off. And then I'm also going to take some raffia and kind of start folding it in on each other on one end and then on the other, kind of like you would do a cord or a vacuum cord maybe. And then I'm going to take an extra piece of raffia and I'm just going to tie that around the middle. So I have this cute little raffia bow, and I'm going to hot glue this down first. And I'm just going to hot glue that right at the base of the pumpkin stem. And then I'm going to take my bow and I'm going to hot glue that down right on top of the raffia. And then I'm just going to hot glue my tails down to the pumpkin where I want them to be. I want them to be kind of fluffed up in certain places, so I'm just going to hot glue them down where I see fit, where I think it'll look pretty. And then I ended up taking some of this wired berries that I have and I just wrapped it around my finger to make it into a coil, and then I just hot glued that right down underneath the bow, and I just did that 2 times, 1 on each side, and that's it. I think this is so stinking cute. This piece right here is what kind of inspired the sweater weather DIYs. I just thought this one was absolutely adorable, so I decided to go on with the theme. So here is how my first DIY turned out. I am going to use these color your own ornaments in the pumpkin shape from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take some of this scrapbook paper that I got in a pack from Michael's, and I'm going to take 2 of those pumpkins and I'm going to trace them out on the back of the scrapbook paper. Once I get that done, I'm just going to take my scissors and cut both of those pumpkins out. I will use my glue stick to glue the scrapbook paper to the front of that pumpkin. Once both of those are done, I'm going to take some paint that I concocted myself. I was trying really hard to match the paint to a color on this ribbon that I'm going to use. I just thought it was really pretty, so I just started grabbing all sorts of colors in my collection and started mixing them all together until I got this color, which I think is absolutely beautiful. If you know of a color like this that is already made that I don't have to mix together a whole bunch of paint colors, let me know, because I think this color is absolutely gorgeous. For the stems, I'm going to use my Waverly Wax and Antique, and I just go over all 3 of those stems. I'm going to take this ribbon like I talked about. I got it from Michael's, and the blue leaves on here is what inspired that color for the pumpkins. I just thought it was so pretty. So I'm going to take a strip of that and I'm going to cut off the wired sides on both edges, and then I will cut this down the middle. And then I will cut probably about 4 inches worth of ribbon, and I am going to do 9 strips of 4 inches. I did originally cut 12 and I didn't need that much. So, and then I'm also going to take this big burlap ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby and I'll do the exact same thing. I'm going to cut off the wired edges and then I'm just going to start cutting this down. It was pretty wide, so I ended up cutting it into 4 strips. So 1 down the middle and then cut down the middle again on those other strips. And then I will cut out 9 of those, just making them the exact same length that I did with the other ribbon. Now I am going to cut down some popsicle sticks using my miter shears. I'm going to use these to hot glue my pumpkins to the back of some twine. So I just added some hot glue to the popsicle stick, put my twine on there, and then just pressed it to the middle of my pumpkin. And then I just started with the middle pumpkin first and then added my ribbon and twine on each side before I hot glued down the next pumpkin, just so that I could get the measurements right, and I didn't want some pumpkins to be further away than others, so it was just easier to start in the middle and then work my way out. And then for the ribbons, I just went in a pattern of each ribbon. So I did the floral ribbon, then the burlap ribbon, then the floral ribbon, And then on the next side of the other side of the pumpkin, I would do the burlap and then the floral and then the burlap. And I just did a pattern just like that. And I just repeated these steps until I had all 5 of my pumpkins on my twine. And then to finish it off, I wanted to cover up those holes that are on the front of my blue-green colored pumpkins. I'm just going to tie a simple shoelace bow with some twine, and I'm just going to hot glue that right to the middle of that hole in the top of the stem. And you have yourself a really pretty pumpkin garland. I think this is so gorgeous. I'm loving all these colors together, and I plan on having this up all fall season long, possibly even longer, because that's how much I love it. This one, I grabbed this pumpkin cutout from Michael's. It was $7.99, but their Halloween and fall stuff is 30% off right now. So I picked that up, and then I also went to my local Goodwill, found this sweater for $3.99. They were also having a sale that day where I got an extra 20% off that. So I'm just going to take my pumpkin and I'm going to trace it on top of my sweater. And I just tried to place it where I felt like it was going to look the best, where I had the prettiest pattern. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut that pattern out of the sweater. And then after I do that, I'm going to lay my sweater piece on top of my pumpkin. And now I want the sides of the pumpkin to show. I want that wood to be seen. So I don't want the sweater to fully cover my pumpkin. I just want it to be a tad bit smaller. So I just took my scissors and went around all the edges and kind of cut off where I thought needed it and tried to shape it into, you know, a better shape than what it was until I got it the way that I liked it. Once I had it all cut off, I took my gel super glue and just super glued this down. I was debating on what kind of glue would work best for this. I had a spray adhesive that did not work at all. So in the end, I just went with some super glue. I didn't want to do hot glue because I didn't want those bumps to be underneath it. You probably know what I'm talking about. So super glue is what worked best for me in this situation. And then I had these table accent pieces that I picked up from Target Dollar Spot last year, and I found this one that said Hello Fall, and I thought this would be perfect. I'm just going to super glue this right to the side of my pumpkin. And then I found these copper pins at Hobby Lobby, and I just thought that these were so cute, and I thought that they would look really pretty, and these are actually really easy to put on here. So I just added one to each end of the Hello Fall word sign and I just pushed it right in there. They just went right on in, not hard at all, and that's all you got to do for this DIY. I think this one turned out so pretty, and it's perfect for my cozy fall decor. I'm going to grab 2 of these pumpkin long signs that you can pick up from the Dollar Tree. I just started off by cutting off the twine and the tags that were on the top in those holes, and I'm going to attach these signs together. So I just took some leftover pieces of some gallon paint stir sticks, and I used that to attach my two signs together at the top. And then I grabbed another paint stir stick and hot glued that down to the bottom so that my signs were nice and glued together. And then you can always use some brown craft paper to cover up the back. And then I'm going to take these wood cutout words. I actually picked these ones up from Michael's. They were $2.99, but they were on sale. So I think that these were a really great deal. And they had a whole bunch of different ones for Halloween and fall. And I just thought the fonts on these were so cute. So this says Hello Pumpkin. I'm going to go in with some Craftsmart Pumpkin Spice acrylic paint. And I just did one coat of this. And then for the word hello, I just took some white Waverly chalk paint and just gave that one coat as well. I'm going to set those to the side, and I'm going to grab two of these pumpkins from this little piece that you can get on the Dollar Tree with the welcome football. I took two of those pumpkins, and then I'm also going to take one of these napkin holders or pen holders. I'm not sure exactly what these are, but I just broke it down and took that front pumpkin off of there. Just be careful not to break it. And then I'm going to take those orange pumpkins that I have, and I'm just going to change the color up a little bit. I took that same pumpkin spice acrylic paint from Craftsmart, and I gave this about 3 good coats. I actually liked because you could still see those lines that were already from the paper or whatever it was from the pumpkin. So I was able to see where to draw the grooves in the pumpkin. So I just took some truffle chalk paint and a really small brush and just kind of went over those lines a little bit. I wasn't too worried about making it perfect or anything. I just went over them slightly. You can see they're not like full solid lines, but I just went over those to make it, more realistic. And then for the other pumpkin, I'm going to take my Dixie Belle paint in Vintage Duck Egg. You guys, this is by far one of my favorite colors for fall. I always have them linked in my description box. I love Dixie Belle. I've used so much of this paint, and you can see I've barely made a dent in it. I feel like I'm using it for all my projects, and it still looks completely full. I just used the truffle chalk paint to paint the stem of the pumpkin, and then I'm just going to lay everything out and start gluing it down to my sign. So I take my 2 orange pumpkins, and I'm going to hot glue those towards the bottom on the sides. And then for my blue pumpkin, I'm going to hot glue that right in the middle on top of my 2 orange pumpkins. And then I'm just going to start hot gluing down my words. So I'll take pumpkin and I'll hot glue that right above the pumpkins. And then I'm going to hot glue down the word hello. And I just tilted it on a little bit of an angle and hot glue that down to my sign as well. Now I was still feeling like it was looking a little too plain, so what I did was take some buffalo check ribbon. I picked this one up, I believe, from Hobby Lobby, but I know during certain seasons you can get some at the Dollar Tree. And I just cut a strip out enough to hot glue around the back of my sign, and I just hot glued that down. And then I wanted to be able to cover up those holes at the top of my sign. So I took the ribbon and I actually just folded it in half, and I hot glued it in half so that it would stay together. And then I'm just going to do the same thing, hot glue that on the top, covering up those holes and wrapping it around to the back. And then I'm going to take some twine and make a cute little bow for my blue pumpkin. I just wrapped it around my index finger and my thumb a couple of times. And then you're going to take another piece of twine and tie it around the middle of those loops. And that's all you have to do to create a really cute and simple twine bow. And I'm just going to cut the tails off to the length that I want them and then hot glue that down to the top of my blue pumpkin. And then I'm going to take some of these sunflowers that you can get from the Dollar Tree as well. And I just took 3 of them, cut off the wire pieces on the back. And then I just hot glued it down to the top of my sign on top of my ribbon. And that's it for this DIY. I think this looks super, super cute sitting outside on my front porch. I finally feel like I have a really cute front porch and I'm really excited to decorate it this year. So here we go. This Dollar Tree outdoor sign, it's actually one of my favorites. I'm going to take a foam pumpkin that I got last year from the Dollar Tree. I had just painted it white. And then I'm going to take a sleeve from a sweater that I got from Goodwill. And I'm just going to insert the pumpkin at the biggest part of the sleeve where the shoulder would be rather than where the wrist would be, so that it would actually go on it a little better. And I'm going to hot glue the bottom of the sweater to the bottom of the pumpkin. And then I'm just going to cut off the excess sweater at the top, and then I'm going to add some hot glue where I cut that hole at the top of the pumpkin, and I'm just going to insert the sweater into there, push it all into that hole, and then I grabbed one of these branches that you can get in a pack from the Dollar Tree, added some hot glue, added some leaves, again from the same pick that I got from Hobby Lobby, onto my pumpkin. And then I'm just going to make a raffia bow to add to my pumpkin just by putting multiple strands of raffia together and wrapping it around my index finger and my thumb, and then just taking an excess piece of raffia through the middle, tying a double knot, and then you have yourself a super cute bow. I just hot glued that to the top part of my pumpkin, and that's it. You can do these in so many different colors and so many different sweater patterns or knit patterns that you have. I just think that the sweater pumpkins are so stinking cute. You could also add some twine and wrap it around to really define the ridges of the pumpkin, which I think would be absolutely beautiful. But this is how mine turned out, and I'm absolutely loving it. I saw this Crisp Autumn Days wall hanger and I just thought this was so pretty. I love the blue for fall. I feel like it's something that's really popular this year, and mixed with those orange watercolor like leaf and pumpkin, I just thought this was really pretty and I knew I could recreate it. So I just went over to my Cricut design space, typed up the words. I used the font England Signature, and again, this is something that I purchased off of design bundles, and I just thought that this font matched pretty well with the original. And you don't really need to keep them in a certain way because I am going to be cutting them all apart in the end anyway, so just as long as the words are the size that you need them, you can always size to your sign once you get your sign all ready to go. So I'm going to take one of these chalkboard signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. The words and everything on the front were already coming off, so I just took a razor blade and kind of scraped off as much as I possibly could, and then used some alcohol to kind of wipe up the rest. It came off pretty easy, so I wasn't too worried about it, and then I could have a finished backing since I wouldn't have to use the back. So I just took my Dixie Belle paint and fluff, and I did give about 2 coats to get the black completely covered up. Now I am going to take one of these stake pieces that came off of some signs from the Dollar Tree, the little yard stake signs, and I'm going to measure this to the size of my sign, and I'm going to cut out 2 pieces because I am going to use these as a border for my sign. So I just grabbed some brown paint. I'm going to paint both of these pieces. Once those are dry, I'm going to use this as a template for now, but I'm going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to start making the stripes that were on that sign. Now, it had a stripe immediately from the top portion of the sign or the frame, and then it had a blue stripe right next to that. And so I just measured the distance from the top portion to the blue stripe and laid some painter's tape down and painted a stripe right there. The top part doesn't matter because it is going to be covered up. And I just do that to the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to just start making some more stripes. So I just laid my painter's tape a little bit over the top of that blue stripe that we already had going. And then I just used some more painter's tape to create another line. And I'm just, again, going to do that on the top and bottom. Now, the inspiration piece did have 3 stripes on the top and the bottom, but if I did a 3rd stripe, it was going to take way too much of my sign that I needed to use for the other pieces. So I decided to just stick with 2 stripes. Obviously, if you had a longer sign, you could definitely do this, or I could have made the stripes smaller, but I felt like for the size of the sign, those stripes were perfect. So I'm going to take a leaf and a pumpkin that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use some wood filler to fill in those holes at the top. And then once those are dry, I'm going to take some orange paint, and I did use some water in there, so it is pretty watered down. And then I got a damp sponge, and I'm just going to make dabbing motions all over the leaf and the pumpkin. I didn't want this to be perfect by any means, and in the inspiration picture, it did have a lot of different colors. There was, not different colors, but more of different shades of orange. A lot lighter spots of orange, a lot darker spots of orange. So I also did mix in a little bit of brown to get a darker orange and dab all over there. I just kind of wanted that watercolor, not so perfect look to the leaf and the pumpkin. And then I'll just start hot gluing the leaf and the pumpkin down on the top corner and the bottom corner, just like the picture. And then I'm going to take my decals that I cut out, I'll add my CRICUT transfer tape to it, and then I'll just cut out each word individually. Since my sign was a little bit smaller and my pumpkin and my leaf were a little bit bigger, I needed to kind of rearrange the placement of them. So that's why I used them in 4 separate pieces rather than in one big piece to lay down, and I just individually placed each word on and used my burnishing tool to get the word stuck on there, remove the transfer tape, and that's it. You could add a hanger to this one if you want, just like the inspiration picture on Kirkland's website. I decided not to for now, but that is, like I said, something you could definitely do. Otherwise, I think that this sign turned out so pretty. Only cost me, I don't know, maybe $3 possibly to make, and I just think that this turned out so pretty. I'm going to take some of this wired jute cord that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I believe I took between 5 and 6 packs of these, and I am not going to unravel them. I'm going to use them just as they come. I'm just going to take the tags off. I'm going to take an extra piece that I have. I'm going to loop them all through the middle of the twine, and then I'm just going to twist this twine through the middle of all of the other ones. Once that's all nice and tight on there, I am going to just move around the pieces of twine as best I can, get the arrangement that I want. I'm going to take one of these long sticks that you can get from Hobby Lobby in a big pack. You can also get ones like this at the Dollar Tree. I just like how long and skinny this one is. I just pushed it as far down as I possibly could in between all of the twine. And then I'm just going to take some florals and leaves that I had, some of these white berries. I have these purple leaves that I think that I got from Hobby Lobby. I just cut some of them off the stem, and then I'm just going to go through and hot glue them all to the top of my pumpkin. This DIY was actually really easy. It probably took me only about 5 minutes. So this one is really fun. If you're looking for a really cute and fast fall craft, you should definitely try this one. And then I'm just going to take some buffalo check ribbon, tie a simple shoelace bow, trim the tails, and then hot glue it down to the front. And that's it for this one. Take this glass piece that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take the sleeve of that same sweater that I've been using, and I'm just going to pull that up over it, and I'm just going to keep pulling until I have as much of the sweater that I want, and then I'll just cut off the excess at the bottom. Now I'm just going to trim up the bottom and super glue it to the bottom of my glass, or my face, I guess you could call it. And then I'm going to add some more super glue to the inside of it, and I'm going to fold down that sleeve portion and stick that to the inside. And then I am going to cut up another piece and cut that piece down, and I'm going to have that wrap around my vase, or my candle holder is what I'm going to call it. I took some leaves that I had from a pick from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to put that on the front, and then I'm just going to tie the sweater piece around the front of that, do a double knot, cut off the excess, and then I just added a tea light from Dollar Tree. Obviously, don't put a real candle in here. Do a fake candle, and that's it for this one. I'm gonna pick up this big chunky yarn. You can get this from Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, anywhere. And I don't know about you, but I love the big chunky blankets, but they are super expensive, and I wanted a mini one so that I could put it in some of my wicker baskets and decorate with it. And so I just thought that I could make one myself. So I followed Catherine from Do It on a Dime, her video that she has on making big chunky blankets like this. And I've knitted in the past, but by all means, I am not an experienced knitter. So it's all very still new to me. If I can do it, you can do it. So you don't need any tools but your hands and the yarn. I'm also going to link Catherine's video in my description box because she explains it way better than I'm going to be able to. If you want to learn how to do it, I'd highly recommend watching her video. So first, I am going to make a slip knot with my yarn just by making a loop and pulling that through. So I'm just going to start with this loop right here, and then all you're going to do is pull your yarn through and create another loop. And you are going to do this as many times as you want, depending on how long you want your blanket, or, you know, just your little piece that you're going to use to decorate with. I did 11 loops. So each time I make a loop, I'm just going to take my yarn and then pull that yarn through the loop. and make a new loop. So I just tried making sure that all my loops were about the same size. And again, I'm just going to keep making those loops until I get 11 loops. Now when you get to the end, you want to make sure that you make one more loop than you want your blanket long. So I made 11 loops. I'm going to make a 12th loop, and that will start the next line of my blanket. Once I have that 12th loop through, I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to start pulling it through those other loops at the top. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, but I'm just going to take my yarn and pull it through that loop that we already made up at the top. And I'm going to make sure that those loops are all the same size. So again, I'm just pulling my yarn through that loop and making sure that that loop is the same size as the other loops that I've made. Once you get these 2 rows done, the rest is really easy. So once you have all of these loops finished, at the end, make sure that you do a second loop through your last loop to make sure that you always have the same number of loops. So again, since I created 11 loops to begin with, I want to make sure that each time I'm creating my loops, I have 11 loops in each row. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, I would highly recommend watching Catherine's video. She explained it so much better. So now that I have all that done, for the rest of this, all you're going to do is pull your yarn through those loops that you already have created and make more loops. That's what you're going to do each time. So just take your yarn, pull it through, make a loop over and over and over again until you have the size of blanket that you want. I used almost the entire skein of this yarn. It had a little bit left, and in fact I probably could have done another line or 2, but I wanted to play it safe and make sure that I didn't run out. So I'm just going to keep doing this until my yarn is almost used up. If I can do this with the baby sitting in front of me trying to play with it, I promise you can do this. So to cast off and finish off the blanket, what you're going to do is take your first 2 loops, you're going to take the second loop in your line, put it through the first loop, and then pull that second loop through. Now you're going to take your third loop in the line, and you're going to take your yarn, you're going to make another loop. Now you're going to take that loop that you just made, put it through that second loop in the line, and pull your third loop through. And you're just going to follow this through the entire line until you get to the very end. So you'll make another loop, and you'll take that, put it through your first loop there, pull that loop over, and then do the same thing. Now when you get to the very end, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're just going to pull your loop through, and then you're going to take your yarn and you're just going to tie a simple knot, and you can take the excess yarn that you have and just kind of weave it through your blanket. And that's it. That's all you got to do for this one. And I think this is so cute in a basket, a wicker basket with pumpkins and leaves on top of it. I just think it looks so cozy to me. So again, I will have Catherine's video linked in my description box if you want a more in-depth tutorial on it, on how to make this type of blanket. going to take one of the foam pumpkins that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint it white just with one layer. This doesn't have to be perfect. It's mostly just so that that neon orange isn't showing through when we add our paper to it. You're going to let that completely dry, and then I just took a book that I got from the Dollar Tree. I cut out several pages. You don't need to cut out too many because you are going to cut the pages in half as well. I cut them long ways, and then you are going to use some Mod Podge, and you are just going to start Mod Podging these papers to your pumpkin. In total, I probably only used maybe like 4 or 5 pages, so it wasn't too many at all, and this was pretty quick as well, besides it being a little bit messy and getting sticky from the Mod Podge. Besides that, this was a really easy DIY, and you don't have to be perfect with it. I was extremely messy with it. Just kind of pushed down anywhere where the pages were lifting up, just added some extra Mod Podge on there. I would put some Mod Podge on the pumpkin, lay the sheet of paper down, and then Mod Podge on top of that as well. Once you've got all that Mod Podge on there, you are going to set it aside to dry. Once it is completely dry, then you can start adding all of your florals and little pieces that you want. So I just cut a little hole in the top and added some hot glue on one of these wooden sticks and added it to the middle of my pumpkin for the stem. Once I did that, I started adding some leaves from picks that I have, mostly from Hobby Lobby. I just hot glued those down there. I added some more of these pieces of cornstalk to it that I just thought gave it that little extra touch and different kind of, texture and color. So I just folded those over, hot glued them down around the stem, and then I have some of these cream berries that I hot glued and a sunflower that I hot glued down and this really pretty orange flower to give it a little pop, and that's it for this DIY. I think this one turned out really pretty. I took my CRICUT and I cut out this piece here, this yellow buffalo check piece that you can see. I just cut out a rectangle to the size of a picture frame, and then I cut out a leaf in the middle. So I'm going to take the glass that came in the picture frame that I'm using, and I'm just going to line it up onto my sweater. Now I want to make sure that where I'm cutting is going to line up with where my leaf is, because the sweater is going to peek through the cardstock, which I think is really cute. And that cardstock also came from a pack that I got from Michael's. So I'm just going to trace around the glass on my sweater, and I'm just going to cut around where I marked. You don't have to be super precise because you're not going to see all of it. You're just going to see the section where that leaf is. So I'm going to take this frame that I got from Goodwill. I got it for $2.49, and I just thought that this was really pretty and would work really great for fall. I'm just going to insert my glass, insert my cardstock, and then put my sweater in the back, and then just close everything on up. And I just think this is so cute. I love the way it looks. I was feeling like it was missing a little bit of something though, so I took some of my SOLAWOODFLOWERS and I just hot glued those to the side. I haven't used these in a project in a really long time, and I just thought that this would work perfect for this. So I will have Sola flowers linked down below if you ever want to check them out. They are some of my favorite flowers to craft with. I think that they just made the perfect finishing touch, and here's how my sweater leaf picture turned out. I found these two wood pieces at the Dollar Tree. I've been able to find a lot of kind of scrap wood type pieces lately, so I picked up quite a few of these, and I'm going to take two of them and I'm going to use my Dixie Belle paint in fluff, and I'm going to paint the whole thing, the front, the back, the side, everything. Gave this about one good coat. Once those were all dry, I just went in with some gel super glue, and I'm going to super glue them together. Now I'm going to take a large gallon paint stick that you can get from Walmart, and I just measured out about the length of those two square plaques together, and I cut this down using my miter shears. Took me a bit of a minute to try to get it to completely cut through. It just wasn't working super great on this. I don't know why. I had to flip it over a couple times, but I eventually got it. You just want to cut down your gallon paint stir stick, and then I'm going to stain it using my Waverly Wax and Antique. Now I'm also going to take some tumbling tower blocks that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm also going to stain those. I only worry about the back and the top because the bottom and the other side are going to be covered. You're not going to see them anyways. And then I'm going to grab a calendar from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use this truck one with the pumpkins that is super popular, and I just absolutely love this. And thank you to my subscribers who sent me calendars. I couldn't have found them without you guys. So a huge shout out to you guys. It seriously means so much, and I seriously have the best subscribers ever. So thank you so much. And then I'm just gonna take those two wooden pieces, and I just traced out the truck, and I'm gonna go through, cut that out, and then I'm gonna take a glue stick onto my wood little plaque, and I'm just going to put that truck picture right on top. I used a knife to kind of get the edges that were hanging off on there, and then I'm going to start assembling my little stand. So I'm going to take my tumbling tower block and take one and just hot glue it right down to the middle, and then I'll just work my way out from there, hot gluing those tumbling tower pieces down. And after that, I'm going to take my brush that still had a little bit of antique wax left on it, and I'm going to use that to distress around my truck. I just went around all of the edges to just kind of make it look more aged and weathered. Once that's done, I'm going to place some hot glue on that stand, and I'm going to place my little plaque right onto the back of that stand. And then I decided it was looking a little too plain, so I took some of these hay bales that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I took two of those, and I'm going to hot glue them down, and then I took these little foam pumpkins that you can get in a pack from Hobby Lobby, and I just started hot gluing those down to one side. I just messed around with the placement, figured out where I wanted everything, and then hot glued it all down. And that's it for this DIY. I think this looks super, super cute sitting on a shelf. Take my CRICUT transfers. I love these ones. Look at how many fun little pumpkin pieces there are on here, all the pumpkin patterns. I loved this one because it reminded me of a sweater. So I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to fuzz it a ton of times over and over again so that it is not too sticky on my wood. So I got this wood tag from Joann's. It was only a couple dollars, and I'm going to line up my pumpkin transfer on this so that there are no curves showing, because I just want this at the bottom of the tag. I don't want it to actually look like a pumpkin. So I'm just going to put that on there so that there will be no curves onto my tag. And then I'm also going to take some washi tape that I also fuzzed multiple times so that it wasn't too sticky on top of my transfer. And I'm going to lay that down so that there's a nice straight line across the top. And then I'm going to take this really beautiful sparkly yellow. I just think this is so pretty. And I'm going to take my squeegee and I'm just going to put that on there with the littlest amount of chalk paste. It takes hardly any at all. This is going to last me a super long time. If you guys are ever interested in chalk couture, I always have it linked in my description. But look how pretty this turns out. I just absolutely love it. And then I just cut out this sweater weather decal using my CRICUT. I'm just going to use this as basically a stencil. I'm just going to put it onto my tag sign and then remove the transfer tape. And then I'm just going to paint over it. So I'm going to use my Dixie Belle paint in burlap. I have been getting a lot of questions about the Dixie Belle paint because I've been using it a lot lately. I absolutely love it. A lot of people ask me if I like it better than Waverly, and the answer is yes. I only have to do one coat the majority of the time with this paint. I just think it looks absolutely gorgeous, and the coverage on it is pretty amazing. So again, I always have Dixie Belle and Chalk Couture linked in my description box. You can always find those links down there if you're ever interested. I just personally love them. I just got a whole ton of different colors in the mail. I bought a lot of it and I am really excited to keep using them. Look out in the future for Dixie Belle giveaways. They will be coming soon. And yeah, I'm just really excited for Dixie Belle. I think that they have really great paints and I was pleasantly surprised when I first tried them out. So I just gave my sign one good coat, and then I'm just going to remove the vinyl that I had laid down, and here you can see the sweater weather words popping through. And then I'm going to take the twine that was on there originally, I'm just going to tie that back on there, and then I cut up a little piece of that sweater that we used with the first DIY with this sweater, and I just cut a little piece off. I'm going to tie a knot around the middle where the paint meets the Chalk Couture paint, and tie a knot, cut off the excess sweater piece, and that's it for this DIY.
And that's it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Let me know which project was your favorite. I cannot wait to get into more fall DIYs. I have a fall haul coming up in the next couple of days. Dollar Tree, Michael's, Target, Chalk Couture, all the things that I've purchased in the last week or so. There was a lot, and I'm so excited. Fall is my favorite season to craft for, so stay tuned for that video. Don't forget to subscribe before you guys leave. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!